Hello friends. Today the topic is exception handling. Before before this session we have discussed about exceptions, the types of exceptions, and also we have seen what is meant by checked and unchecked exception. Today we'll discuss about the exception handling. What is meant by exception handling? Exception handling is a mechanism which will allow the program to execute normally. When any exception comes, the program will terminate. The execution of program will not happen. If we handle the exception, the execution of program will be proceed. For example, if we have a 10 statements, at line number 5, at line statement 5 has caused an exception. If we handle that exception at line number 5, the program will proceed to execute the next statement. If we didn't handle any exception, the program will terminate. The exception can handle using 5 keywords: try, catch, finally, throw, and throws. What is meant by try? What is meant by catch? Try is a keyword which will used in the exception handling. While implementation of any program, if you feel, if you see, if you doubt the particular code, the specific block of code will cause an exception. That block of code we need to keep in the try block. If you see below the code snippet, the try block, within the try block we kept these 2 lines of code. Means here we are creating the file object. This file object is taking the file path. If this file path is not exist, then we'll get the file not found exception. Here we see the compile time exception. That's why we kept these 2 lines of code within the try block. If we get an exception while execution of program, if we get an exception at line number, at this line, it will catch here and it will print this message to the user. It will print this message. The file not exist message will be printed. The next thing is finally. Finally is a keyword which we'll use in exception handling. The finally block will use in exception handling to close the resources, to complete the statement. Example, if we have opened any file in our program, implementation of program, if we have opened any file, that file we need to close, otherwise the resource will still open. If you see the combination of try, catch, finally, try always followed by catch or finally. We cannot write the try block without catch or finally. But catch always followed by try block, finally will always followed by catch or try block. The next thing is throw. The throw is the keyword which we'll use in the exception handling mechanism. In our previous session, we have discussed there are 2 types of exceptions. One is built-in exception, another one is user-defined exception. In case of user-defined exception, if we wanted to throw any exception, in that case we'll use the throw keyword. If you see this code snippet, inside the if block we have written my exception me equal to new my exception balance is less than 1000. Here my exception is the user defined exception. This exception will occur when balance is less than 1000. When this exception comes, we need to throw this exception. What happens when we throw this exception? When we throw this exception within the method, it will go to the catch block and it will print the stack trace. It will trace and it will print the trace where the exception has occurred. And this throw keyword will be used within the method. The next one is the throws. Throws is the keyword which will used for the method. Like if you see the below code, the class exception, public static void main, here we are throwing IO exception. The throws keyword will use to throw predefined exceptions. That's it, friends, regarding the exception. In our next topic is user defined exception. How to create the user defined exception? Till now we have discussed built-in exceptions. There are multiple types of built-in exception: checked and unchecked exceptions. Checked exceptions are multiple types and unchecked exceptions are multiple types. Now we have the user defined exception. If we wanted to define any exception within the program, then we'll go with the user defined exception. Normally, if you see the real-time application, in real-time applications, most of the time we'll go with the user defined exception. Example, if any user specific message if we wanted to show, for example, user balance is less, user account is not exist, user date has expired, user login credentials are invalid. These kind of exceptions will handle by using user defined exceptions. User defined exceptions, to create the user defined exception, to handle the user defined exception, first we need to create the user defined exception. To creation of user defined exception, we need to follow the 4 steps. 1. We need to extend our class as exception, and inside the class we need to create the constructor, default argument constructor. If we wanted to pass any message, if we wanted to show any message to the end user, we need to create the parameterized constructor. Then after that, within the class, wherever if we want to handle this user defined exception, there the step number 4 we need to implement. That's it, friends. Thank you. Please subscribe.